I'm gonna jump back in. In that last video, I didn't mean to be flipping with that because I try to get off a little bit too. I try to explain a little bit too heavy of a concept, with the limited range that was left on that video because there's like a limit on the time on these. So that was a little bit flippant to go like that. But so what I wanted to say is like, so I've been working really hard to get back the footing that I need after I got bad footing from like something that didn't go well. But I was working so hard that I almost got pulled over from working too hard. Like what you'd have to be doing to work hard enough to get to raise a question about you. And so when someone walks up to your car and like what they might be thinking is like, is this dude chiefing? Is this a chief I have on my hands? But you work hard enough and you actually might feel like a chief. So I actually I hadn't been consuming anything. So I was allowed to like I was recommended to get some rest. And um and so um but what I wanted to say is that a lot of but you work hard enough and then you actually get to feel like a chief a little bit. And so what I was saying is that rest feels a lot better when you've been working. Like I think food tastes better when you've been eating. Rest rest feels better when you've been working. And I think maybe other things that are similar to resting, eating, and whatnot would also go better if they're like in their context about what would lead up to them if you were doing things the right way. But I think that a lot of a lot of life, like I think that I talked to a scholar in privacy and he said that you can you can if you were to like to understand like how things are broken down like in military science, is that they look at a human being or as like an electrical network and as a system, as a part of a broader network, whether that's a individual opponent, combatant, whatnot, to a group, an army, a nation, a region, on and on like that. It's more so like systems within systems, and even a human being being an individual member and unit of a bigger system, but also that unit is comprised of smaller systems, and all that can be appreciated in electrical terms from a military science standpoint. If you were to look at how that actually might be insight into how they conceive some of these different horrible weaponry that we get to experience, like whether that's like people abroad experiencing horrible weaponry or people locally when that weaponry gets on like maybe the black market, or it doesn't even have to be the black market, it can just be above board. You can procure a lot of horrible stuff that's been conceived with like the same type of thought process that would go into military engineering, and like a very little old civilian, a little old nobody, that nobody's worried about, that doesn't got any reason to anybody be worried about them, while everybody are frolicking and enjoying the good life. The little old nobody sometimes is being feeling or having things pointed at or thought about them with that is coming from this military stuff. And but they when an insight into how they'd be conceiving some of these things is that to appreciate a human being, a living organism, a human being, as a system that is within other systems and is comprised of smaller systems, but that all that is electrical from a military science standpoint, and that's the best way to understand building something up or neutralize something is in electrical terms. But I think it's similar in medicine, where a lot of medicine is appreciated if you were to study, like say you were to take like a medical track, not even necessarily an MD, but just any kind of medical track that would involve the understanding of the human body and the terms that go with that and the processes that go with that. It would be, you would likely start with like anatomy and physiology, which are maybe that anatomy might be more of a static skeletal, pun intended, framework for then physiology, which is also a part of that framework, but then is the dynamic range, the active, kinetic. And I've quoted Arthur Avalon that according to Arthur Avalon, all activity is comprised, attended, and without proximity to dynamics of static and kinetic activity. That is, kinetic activity has a static base and component that makes it viable. And you can see that in some people's personality. I think I've mentioned that I work with people that work very very hard, so hard as to have like a kind of equipoise and a calm that you can't fake something like that. And it's a deep calm but it comes from a beyond frantic yet efficient, not just frantic, but fast and efficient. That is relentless, smart, clever work, objectivity, work initiative, um, efficacy, but then it's attended by a calm peace, and it's a little bit of a it's a very masculine thing where it's very it's somewhat very if you meet someone that's incredibly masculine, or you sometimes you can see people that are both very masculine and very feminine in the same person, and it's that's how dynamic life is, and I think that might actually be why some of your deities in other in folklore are somewhat androgynous. Either it's a strong male component that's deeply attended by connected to and associated with and attended by a female consort counterpart, or within the same one you would have that both. So I think that actually might be like your Baphomet is like that. It's like that that man woman thing like that. And then there's a lot of that in allegory where you have male and female in the same figure. But I've actually met people that are very formidable and they're like that where they're very masculine, very calm and poised, yet also beyond frantic and fast, while also efficient and smart. And it's incredible like that, and also to go through ranges, like to go through gear. One thing that's very difficult is going through gears. So it's not so much difficult to be like all out sprinting necessarily, or like doing something slow or going, but you go through ranges like, okay, so now I'm sitting down, now I'm standing up, now I'm running, now I'm sitting down, now I'm standing up, now I'm up, now I'm running. Now, so that going through gears is like that is very difficult. And it's another skill and effort in itself is going through gears, that is ranges and frequencies of activity. And you can see that in some people that can go from being very calm to very active and kinetic. And I also had a female trainer in one of my professional roles who had, she reminded me a lot of that male manager I had, where it was something of very almost like very calm and very efficient and fast, um, very masculine and feminine in the same person. But I got a little bit on a tangent with that, um, but um, but most things, but most things, including the body, can be appreciated as electrical conduits that mitigate, facilitate, invite, and block a charge of some kind. So you can almost say that yes, the entire existence is unified and is one in essence. It's unity. The word unity is even redundant in that point because you needed something to offset the coherence, something that would be outside of it to give a sensation of unity. So unity is a little bit redundant without something to truly interfere with it. But yet there is challenge to anything because nothing's viable without challenge. So even within unity, you have diversity within unity, and unity within diversity that makes dynamic range that gives you the charges that you need to make life viable because there's no life without the charge. And so you do need some antagonism and friction because a lot of what we have, like we have fire, to a lot of our life, the things we enjoy, the amenities we have, what we can do, what we fear, what we love, is attended by fire in the first place. More so significant than even materialism is that materialism had been wrought by fire, and we are simply infatuated with fire to this point. But fire comes from friction. Fire is a function and expression of friction. So you could also say that the electricity and vitality might be synonymous, and vitality might be a better word than electricity because electricity is bound and limited by our understanding of the lines of that, like with metal and whatnot. But vitality is broader than that, and but it is part of that. So vitality is a better word, I think. But that vitality is actually because things are unified yet diversified at once, and so that can be appreciated in terms of the different lines of charges that are possible but also mitigated. And you could almost look at any structure as within that reality and facilitating that reality and nothing more or less. And even as you look at what I appear as a man or a male, there are many different what the structure of my physical frame is a function of, supports and furthers just the expression of charges upon appropriate lines that would make my existence possible and for me to fit into a broader framework. But a lot of that can be very contentious. So you hear like these horns going off, like car alarm systems. It's blocking a charge of some kind. But all I meant to say is that if you appreciate that there's a back road and a bypass of any there's a bypass of anything that's blocked, including our charges. So all this universe can actually be experienced at once and connected in the greatest of sense, ultimately at all at once. And that's what it feels like to chief, I think, to sit down after a lot of work and feel that you have a pair of something.